Alright, you know the drill by now. My name is Vivid and this is going to be my attempt to beat a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokémon X using only absolutely garbage tier Pokémon. We've done this before in Pokémon Emerald and that has been one of my favorite runs, so after this run, if you're looking for more spice, my entire hardcore Nuzlocke playlist will be linked down below. By now, I think most of you know the hardcore Nuzlocke rules, but if you don't, they're on the screen right now and can be found in the description down below. So you might be asking yourself, how do you define what a garbage Pokemon is? And I would answer with the same way I did in my last trash video, with Smogon tiers for the generation I'm playing in. And while that is definitely not a perfect science, I think you'll find that it lines up pretty well in practice. For a quick example, if I asked you to rank Dunsparce, Megalodios, and Venusaur from the best to worst Pokemon for a hardcore Nuzlocke, your rankings would probably look like this, with Dunsparce at the bottom, Venusaur in the middle, and Megalodios at the top. Conveniently, that is exactly how the tiers would line up on Smogon. So for this run, I will only be allowed to use Pokemon in the PU tier, which I think stands for Purgatory, if not just PU, like wow that stinks, or Pokemon in the untiered tier, which are basically Pokemon that were so terrible in this generation that they weren't even placed in a tier. I'll also have some bonus rules that I'll go over later to try and make the Kalos games just a bit more difficult since they can be incredibly easy. If you enjoy these videos, please remember to leave a like since it helps out a ton, and consider subscribing if you're new here. I have big plans for 2022. Also, before we start, let me know what your favorite garbage Pokemon is. I personally like a ton of just generally useless Pokemon, but one that I particularly love is Castform. It's a cute little cloud boy that changes with the weather, and I just think it's neat. Okay, let's get into this. We start off our journey listening to an insanely handsome professor talk about Pokemon, and then we are instantly whisked away to meet all 37 of our rivals. Seriously, there are way too many rivals in this game, but they let us pick a starter. Not a single one of these Pokemon is usable with my current limitations though, so we just picked Chespin as a filler, since I think Delphox will probably be the best against most of our encounters, so it will make the game just that much more challenging for us. And you know what? While I may enjoy challenging Nuzlockes, I would prefer my grooming to be made easy. And thanks to Manscaped, the sponsor of today's video, my personal grooming routine is easier than all of the Gen 6 Pokemon games. Take it away, Vivid, from a slightly different time. So, you need to cut the weeds? Wait, no, not those. Trust me, you won't want the HM for cut where we're going. Thankfully, Manscaped hooked me up and sent me the Perfect Package 4.0, which includes the new Lawnmower 4.0. And in this box is everything you need to level up your personal grooming game. The Lawnmower 4.0 uses advanced skin-safe technology to help reduce nicks and cuts in your most sensitive regions, meaning this trimmer cares for your balls as well as Nurse Joy does. It's wireless, waterproof, and has a super convenient LED light near the blade so you can trim in the shower and see what you're doing down there. I swear, the Lawnmower 4.0 is so overpowered, it could solo run any hardcore Nuzlocke and it could beat any speedrun record. And if for some reason that alone is not enough for you, the Perfect Package 4.0 also comes with the Crop Reviver Spray, a refreshing mist for your goods, and the Crop Preserver, an incredible smelling deodorant to keep your Pokeballs fresh. You get all this plus 2 free gifts, the Shed Travel Bag to contain your Perfect Package and take it on the go, and the incredibly soft anti-chafing Manscaped boxers. So if you're ready to bring your personal grooming game to the next level, click my link in the description down below or in the pinned comment, or go on over to manscaped.com and be sure to use code VIVID at checkout to save 20% off of your order and get free international shipping. Also, this wasn't included anywhere in the talking points, but this is the absolute softest and most comfortable shirt I've ever owned. Just saying. Thank you once again, Manscaped, for supporting my content. Now we can actually work on catching some Pokemon, and one thing that Pokemon X and Y do very well is really increase the diversity of encounters throughout the entire game, so we have a lot of options early. We end up with the Pidgey as our first encounter on Route 1 though, and while it's not the most exciting, she should help out a ton in the first gym. So I catch her and name her Riza. As usual, I have a theme for my nicknames, and it's up to you to guess it. I think this one is pretty easy, but let's see how many of you actually get it. Our next encounter comes in Sandloon Forest, and sadly, we get the Grass Monkey. I mean, this is my favorite monkey out of all of the elemental monkeys, even though I just kind of hate all of the elemental monkeys, but I digress. I just would have rather had a fire type here. Fire types are going to be super rare in this run, and Pansear would have been pretty dope. Grass types are a dime a dozen, on the other hand. I guess it's whatever though, we name him Hughes and move on. We then find a Dunsparce on Route 3, which is actually kind of super rare, and a Psyduck on Route 22. I name them Greed and Winry respectively. Merc this lady who gives me some sick rollerblades, and then we go to challenge Viola. But remember how I said I would be adding extra rules to make this run just a tad bit more difficult? Well, I've decided that in each gym battle, I can only use as many Pokemon as the gym leader uses, +1. The +1 is just to account for healing items since it essentially gives them an extra Pokemon in a way. But if you think this is even too generous after this run, on my next X and Y playthrough, I'll crank up the difficulty even more. For the Viola battle, I'm picking just Greed and Riza because I don't think I'll need more than 2 Pokemon for this gym. Riza just has a type advantage here, and Greed has good stats for this part of the game and has learned Rollout, so I'm kind of just expecting him to sweep. And spoiler alert, he does. Rollout takes out Surskit in 2 hits, and when I finally attack the 4 times weak to rock types Vivillon, the base power of Rollout is a whopping 120, but then it's multiplied by 4, so 480. The little butterfly just didn't stand a shot here. Probably the easiest badge of my career. Next we move on and grab a Skitty from Route 4, which is probably the most garbage Pokemon we've caught so far, but it is a Pokemon. I name her Nina, and hopefully she'll at least have a better fate than her namesake. We then have to meet up with the most attractive professor in the franchise and fight him. He uses the 3 Kanto starters, but my team is pretty well rounded for this point in the game, and I have super effective types for his entire team. So the fight is really easy. We get to pick another starter out of his collection after we beat him. I'm assuming because he is ashamed of how weak his team performed, so he is just giving them away at this point, but it doesn't really matter since I can't use any of them anyway. Bulbasaur is the best Gen 1 starter by a mile though, so I pick it and then we just box it. Sorry bud, trash only. Now there is an insanely long gap between this point of the game and the next gym badge, and I can catch so many Pokemon in this run that I think I'm only going to go over the ones I use or that make an impact in some way. So let's mostly skip through this part and just cover the highlights. I catch a Skiddo on Route 5 and name her Olivier. Riza evolves into a Pidgeotto and gets a sick haircut. I catch an Esper and name him Scar. I catch a Ducklet and name him Shao. And then I catch a Drifloon and name her Envy. Super stoked for this one because I love Drifblim. It's just one of my favorite ghost types. Then I get mega lucky and catch a Mawile and name him Edward because he exudes main character energy. Mawile has super underwhelming stats admittedly, but Fairy Steel is an insane type both offensively and defensively, and Intimidate makes him way more durable than he should be. I am excited for this one. Keeping the encounter train rolling, I grab a Nose Pass on Route 10, and even though I loathe this Pokemon aesthetically, I really think Nose Pass, or more specifically Probopass when we can unlock it, will be a fantastic defensive pivot. So I'm excited to at least give it a try. Oh, also I name him Armstrong, I think for obvious reasons if you know my naming theme yet. Then I reach deep down inside myself and I find my inner shitty movie director that lives inside us all, because I just introduced a brand new character to you just to kill them off. It's Scar. I actually missed the death because I wasn't recording at the time because I normally don't record all my grinding, but I've since set up flashback recording so moments like this shouldn't happen as often. Either way, rest in peace Scar. No one knew you, and probably not many people were attached to you. Even me if I'm being honest. I'm sorry Bubba, just enjoy your early retirement. And with all of that out of the way, the filler arc is over. Back to the main story. We're on to badge 2 and it's versus Grant and his fossils. For this battle I'm locking in Winry, Edward, and Olivier. I lead off with Winry into his Amura, and a Water Pulse drops Littlefoot to about 50% and confuses it, but it breaks through and paralyzes me with a Thunder Wave. On the next turn, Littlefoot hits itself in confusion, but I am also fully paralyzed and cannot move, which is sad. We run the exact same turn back again, where the long neck hits itself, but this time I break through and pick up the KO with another Water Pulse. Now, all that's left is Grant's second fossil, Tyrant. But Little Chomper here is much more terrifying against my team. I switch into Olivier on the first turn and take a massive bite for over 50% of my health. I'm not gonna lie, I really did not expect it to do that much damage, so then I switch into Edward to get the Intimidate off and absolutely snack on a Rock Tomb. On the next turn I go for a bite of my own, and it does basically nothing. Even though I resist every single one of Chomper's attacks, could lose to some ridiculous crits or flinches here, so I switch into Winry, taking a bite for around a fourth of my HP bar, and then I stay in taking another bite which drops me below half and activates my Oranberry, and I get off a Water Pulse for a solid amount of chip damage. I have to switch out or I risk getting dropped on the next turn, so I go back into Edward, I bite once more, and then Grant goes for a Hyper Potion. So I switch into Olivier, then double back into Edward for another Intimidate drop, and now I can pretty safely win the damage race. So over the next few turns, I knock out the Sharptooth with bites. Edward's type is great, but not having any these stab moves is really hurting him right now. We get the Pebble badge or whatever generic name it has, and now we can move on. Shortly after leaving, Envy evolves into a Driftblim, which is immaculate timing because I have a fighting type gym coming up, and now I have a fully evolved flying ghost type to help out with that fight. This should be insanely useful since flying is super effective against fighting types and ghosts are immune to them. Also, once again, I just love Driftblim. While trying to walk out of Geosinge Town, some crazy lady attacks me with her dog. By abusing the combination of Thunderwave and Hex on Envy, I'm able to easily dispatch them. In Reflection Cave, I run into and catch a Mr. Mime that I named Bradley. I'm picking this name because at first Mr. Mime seems like a kind guy, but if you really pay attention, you know there's something sinister about him. Bradley is another perfect Pokemon to have for the upcoming gym since its Psychic Fairy typing lets it quad resist fighting types. It will also serve as a replacement and probably a better version of, I'm not gonna lie, I already forgot what Esper's name was. Not kidding, as I was typing this part of the script, I straight up forgot it. Damn. After this, we have to fight Serena to prove to the crazy dog lady that I deserve a piece of jewelry I can't even really use in this run, but it's required to progress the story, so I guess we'll do it. Serena leads Meowstic, so I lead Envy. On turn 1, I take a Psybeam for very little damage, and then Hex does well over 50% to the cat. On the next turn, I take another soft hit, and Envy just guides the cat into the afterlife. Absol, another cat-like thing, comes out, and it could absolutely annihilate Envy from this HP range. So I switch into Ed and get off an Intimidate and resist a bite. A Rock Smash takes the Absol below 50% and drops its defense level, and then for some reason I switch around for a little bit and just end up with Edward in again. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know why I did this. Either way, another Rock Smash from Ed KOs the Absol. Serena's last Pokemon is Braixen, who is incredibly threatening to my team, so I switch into Shu, who I haven't used before this moment, but he's really expendable and a good counter here. I get trapped in with Fire Spin, so I set up some residual healing to counter the chip damage with an Aqua Ring, but it answers with a Psybeam, which absolutely chunks me. I get a crit Bubble Beam for over half the Firefox's health. Shu always dies to another Psybeam here, but instead Serena just uses Fire Spin on the next turn while I heal, which is not a great play, Serena. I heal with the Roost and then drown the Fox on the next turn. So I win a thing that lets me Mega Evolve in a run where I can't Mega Evolve. Or, well, I would, but now I have to prove myself again to the crazy dog lady by beating her since, surprise, she's also a gym leader. So let's go do that. I'm locking in Bradley, Envy, Shu, and Ed for this fight. So with that decided, I challenge Korrina. I lead off with Envy, who her Mienfoo can't even touch. On the first turn, I go for a Thunder Wave, and she actually switched into Macho. The AI worked out for once. On the next turn, I absolutely meant to click anything but Thunder Wave again, but I misclicked, so I guess you could say that my AI didn't work this turn. Her Macho has guts, so we take a really hard-hitting Rock Tomb to under half. Not really a great turn for the home team. I switch into Bradley as the Muscle Boy gets fully paralyzed. Then I have Bradley set up a Reflect to buff my team's defense, and I take a light Rock Tomb in return. A Psybeam drops the Machoke to like 3 health on the next turn as I dodge a Rock Tomb, and after baiting a couple of Hyper Potions, we finish the Machoke off with the final Psybeam. Korrina brings back out Mienfoo, who literally cannot touch Envy, so I bring her back out and just take this thing out at my own pace. Hawlucha is next, and surprise, it also cannot touch Envy. As soon as the Machoke went down, we basically had the checkmate here. GG, dog lady. So now that I've beaten her, surely I am skilled enough to be given this piece of jewelry that I won't even use, right? Oh? No. We have to battle her again, but this time we have to use one of her dogs to do it. Whatever, I'm skipping this part of the game. Moving on. With our new level cap, we can finally let Winry evolve, and now our team is actually starting to look pretty strong. We have to battle Serena again to access the next gem, but I've added Armstrong to the team at this point, and his bulk and typing make this fight so much easier, it's not even worth covering. Olivier evolves after the battle, and honestly, I might secretly love this goat way more than I thought I would. I've never once used a Skiddo or a Go-Goat, and I have been thoroughly impressed. As one final upgrade before taking on the next gym, I head out to the desert area of Route 113, and I level up Armstrong so he evolves into a Probopass. This gives me a second Steel type and an absolute defensive Titan. It's also just ugly as hell. Now with our amped up team, it's already time for the 4th gym, which I think is one of the not so great things about X and Y. The pacing of the main story is really odd. You spend so much time getting from the 1st to 2nd gym, and then the next 3 all happen super one after the other. It's just really weird pacing. whatever. I'm gonna go fight the grass guy, who I 100% believe is one of the most forgettable gym leaders of all time. If you can name this man right now without looking it up, I promise I will reply to and or heart your comment or something, because I just don't believe many Pokemon fans can actually do it. Anyway, for this fight, I lock in Envy. That's it. She's learned Acrobatics now, which is a 55 base power flying type move that doubles in power if you're not holding an item, so I just don't hold an item. I could go turn by turn here, but let me break this entire battle down in 2 words. Envy fucks. And that is my singular PG-13 F word for the run. So I get the plant badge or grass badge or whatever the name is, and we move on. Now it's time to save the power plant, because all the power is cut off in the biggest city in the Kalos region, and it wouldn't be a Pokemon game if adults didn't rely on preteens to solve all of their problems. Lucky for you, we have the ability to just skip this part of the game in editing, because unluckily for me, it is mondo boring. Short synopsis, we save the power plant and turn the lights back on. Next is the electric gym, and this one can actually be pretty tough. Clemont has a solid team with annoying Pokemon, but I've got some pretty strong pieces now, and I think I really only need the combination of Armstrong and Olivier here, but let's see. I lead off with Armstrong into Clemont's Pikachu clone, and I go for a Power Gem expecting this thing to Volt Switch, and it does. Power Gem doesn't hit the incoming Magneton hard, but that's fine because it breaks Sturdy, which is massive. I switch into Olivier on the next turn, and Mag just sets up an electric terrain. I'm not sure why, but the AI seems to be programmed to go for terrain frequently, which is fine by me because I get a free switch. Next turn I outpace and go for dig, and the AI just kind of punts here and lets me drop the Magneton. Clemont, bud, you had a flying type. Why are you playing this poorly? He sends back out Emolga, and I go for a Seed Bomb to scale damage, and it turns out that Emolga's Aerial Ace does a little bit too much damage to me, and I don't do nearly enough to it. I switch into Armstrong on the next turn, snacking on an Aerial Ace, and then I go for a Power Gem as the Emolga switches into Heliolisk, and the lizard takes about a quarter of its health. Fearing a hard-hitting Thunderbolt, I switch into Olivier, but this Helio just goes for a Grass Knot, which activates my Sap Sipper, so I just get in for free. I click Synthesis on the next turn to stay healthy, and then for some reason, I click Bulk Up twice. I'm not really sure what the thought process was here, to be honest with you. I mean, it's pretty free because I can Synthesis up whenever I get low, and then I obliterate this poor lizard with a Seed Bomb, but as soon as the Emolga switches in, I go right back into Armstrong to finish the fight with a single Power Gem. So I'm not sure why I set up at all if I was always going to do this, but maybe at the time I just thought it was style points. Who knows? I got the 5th badge though. Nice. I have to take my team of misfits through the swamp where Serena charges us up again, but our team is pretty strong now. It's slow as sin. I don't have a single fast Pokemon, but it's strong. We make our way to Laver City, and there really isn't much to do here other than take on the gym, so we do that. For Valerie, I decide to lock in Edward, Envy, and Armstrong as the members I'll be allowed to use. I'm noticing that even though I've allowed myself the gym leader's team size +1, I have rarely ever done that. I normally just get by with 2 or 3 Pokemon, so maybe I'll make the rules a little bit harder in the future. We challenge Val and lead Edward into her own Mawile. It has no moves that will hurt me, and I can just set up power-up punches while it whittles itself down by touching me while I'm wearing a Rocky helmet. She burns through all of her potions, and her Mawile eventually goes down after I've gotten to +6 attack with power-up punches. She sends out her own Mr. Mime, so I stay in and click Baton Pass. Yes, that is correct. I am passing 6 attack boosts to Envy. The Mime clicks Reflect, but still drops to a +6 Acrobatics, and the Sylveon actually manages to live 1 hit, but really stood no chance ever and drops to the 2nd. In this moment, I now understand why some competitive formats ban Baton Pass, because that was stupid. I get the Twinkle badge and realize that there is a commotion at the local Pokeball factory because Team Flare is running amok there, so I go and stop them. In doing so, the owner of the company gives me a Master Ball, which is going to be super important later. You'll see. We proceed on our journey, and for the first time in a long time, I find a new Pokemon that actually matters. I encounter a Floatzel on Route 115, catch him, and name him Ling Yao. He won't be very useful right now, but later, a fast water type might actually come in handy. You better watch out, Winry, because you might be replaced. We make our way to Dendamil Town, which has a big windmill in it, and I think that's why the name of the town sounds vaguely like windmill. It's really the only defining feature about this town. Nothing important happens here. I have to stomp through some snow to get to the next town with an actual gym, but in order to do that, I need this Mamoswine to chill out. For some reason, it seems to have cold feet about traveling right now. It's giving me a rather icy demeanor. Alright, look, I'm doing my best. I was a photography major, not a script writing major. Also, liberal arts college degrees are a scam. I'm not sure how one bad joke led me to this tangent, but here we are. On a serious note, this Mamoswine is a massive baby, and it won't let me ride it until we clear Team Flare out of the Frost Cavern, so we do that. Then we ride this thick boy on over to Anastar City, where, surprise, Serena is waiting for me in front of the gym to ambush me before we can go in. Her team has gotten quite a bit better in terms of movesets, and she's added Jolteon to the team, so she's actually getting a little scary. I lead Armstrong Armstrong versus her Meowstic, and the moral of the story is Meowstic cannot even try to put a dent in me. I don't do a ton of damage, but I take even less, so I power gem it down over a few turns. Jolteon comes out next, and I think Earth Power is going to obliterate it, but again, I don't do a ton of damage, and Jolteon's discharge is actually a threat. I switch into Olivier, who takes nothing from a quick attack into a discharge, and then I just make it sit with my newly learned Horn Leech. The Firefox comes out next, so I just hard switch into Winry. I take kind of a lot from a flamethrower and I get burned, but on the next turn I stay in and go for Surf and drop the Delphox to the red. Another flamethrower plus burn damage takes me to low yellow, so I switch into Bradley for his special defense and take the Fox out on the next turn. Her last Pokemon is Absol, and Armstrong is just too bulky to muscle through, so we drop it and now we can access the gym. Olympia is the next gym leader we'll face, and she has just psychic types. She can be kind of scary because both Sigilif and Slowking hit hard, and her Meowstic does stuff, I guess. I mean, I understand this is her ace because it's a new Pokemon for this generation, but it's really just not very good. Regardless, I have 2 steel types, so this battle doesn't look very hard on paper. I'm locking in Armstrong, Olivier, and Edward for this fight. I lead Armstrong into her Sigilif because, shockingly, Sigil just cannot hurt me at all, especially now that I have leftovers to get some residual recovery each turn. A couple of power gems is enough to take it out, and Olympia brings out Meowstic. I stay in to paralyze it with Thunder Wave, and then switch into Edward on the next turn as the cat stays fully paralyzed. I use Crunch, chunking it for over half of its health while it just stays paralyzed again. One more Crunch finishes it off, and Slowking comes out to replace it. Here, a simple hard switch into Olivier and a single Horn Leech are enough to dethrone the king. That is badge number 7 done. As soon as we walk out of the gym, the story I have been skipping over this entire video comes to a head, and it can all be summarized by saying a man with an insane haircut wants to destroy the world other than, like, I don't know, himself and some other Team Flare members. He also wants to murk all the Pokemon on the planet. His reason is so he can keep the world beautiful or something. I'm sure there's more nuance to it than that, or maybe not, but I just figured I would catch you up to speed real quick. So we have to infiltrate the Team Flare lair, and we battle Lysander 3 times in a row during this point in the game. So we'll just skip the first 2 because the only one that really matters and is difficult is the last one. Anyway, Team Flare has activated the ultimate weapon, and now I have to go to their second hidden base back in Geosinge Town, where I find that they have imprisoned Xerneas and are trying to use it as a battery to power the ultimate weapon. So I wake up and challenge Xerneas in what will most likely be my most difficult battle yet. Psych. Remember when I said the Master Ball was important? Yeah, well, you have to catch this thing. You cannot progress through the game without doing that, so there's no reason to waste any time here. I yeet Xerneas into a Master Ball, then immediately box it, which causes Lysander to challenge me for a final time, and he is super triggered and dressed up in a janky Doc Ock cosplay. I lead off with Envy into Lysander's Mienshao, and we trade acrobatics. I only take about a third of my health and damage, but we just put Mienshao into a body bag with our acro. He sends out Pyroar, and Envy probably doesn't take a Fire Blast well, so I switch into Winry. We snack on the flames, and on the next turn we just one-shot Mufasa with a Surf. Honchkrow comes out next, and I decide to just stay in and Surf. I take a decent chunk from Night Slash, but my second Surf just picks the bird off. We're down to Lysander's final Pokemon, and it's a Gyarados. But not just any Gyarados, it's a Mega Gyarados, which is incredibly strong. He should use Outrage this turn as it will do the most damage to Winry, so I switch into Edward for the Intimidate drop, and we get the prediction right, so we switch in for free. Predicting an Earthquake on the following turn, I double into Olivier, and we nail this prediction too. I do this cycle one more time, out into Ed and then back into Olivier for another Intimidate drop. Then I stay in and use Bulk Up as I take 60 damage from a -2 Outrage, which is either a high roll or I am calcing something incredibly wrong. Every calc I am looking at says I live anything but a critical hit high roll still, so I stay in and click Horn Leech. The next Outrage only does 40 damage, and we drop the oversized Cocktail Shrimp in one hit. Good job, Olivier. Good job. With Lysander beaten, he learns the error of his ways, at least until the Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon games, but that's a problem for someone else in the future. For now, we can just move on and finish the game. On Route 18, I run into the incredibly rare Heatmore, and this guy could not have been more timely. Don't get me wrong, I would have much rather preferred a Torkoal here because Heatmore's move pool is terrible without move tutors or egg moves, but a fire type is a fire type, and I think I only had 4 shots at one in this entire run, so I will gladly accept. I name him Roy, and I'm gonna have to rearrange my team eventually to slot him in. In Koraway Town, Professor Sycamore wants to square off, and this time he has fully evolved versions of all the Kanto starters, but once again, I absolutely roll him. He might be the most attractive professor we've ever had, but that's not going to stop me from body bagging him. Sorry, bud. On our way to the last town with the last gym, all of the reject rivals show up and challenge me one after another. I won't go turn by turn here because it's kind of a lot, but just know if you're doing a Nuzlocke in these games, these battles can be kind of tough. You don't get to change the order of your team or heal in between the first and second battle, but you do get healed between the second and third battles, which is just a little confusing. Individually, their teams aren't amazing, but just slamming them back to back can be rough. With that out of the way, we finally make it to the last town, and I need to make some changes before going to the gym. First, I mentioned this before, but I need a faster Pokemon on my team. I just need to be able to outspeed things sometimes, so I'm swapping Winry out for Ling. Floatzel just gives me better coverage in this spot and gives me the option to actually outpace things. Second, for now, it doesn't super matter since I'm only going to be able to lock in 4 Pokemon for the 8th gym, but I'm going to have to make a change to the team to fit Roy on. Fire types are just too good for the upcoming challenges, but I'll make the final decision later. It's not vital right now. So I lock in Ling, Roy, Armstrong, and Ed for this gym, train my team up for a bit, go find the gym leader who has abandoned his post, and then challenge Wulfric VGC. The 2016 world champ leads off with a Abomasnow, but with one snap of his fingers, Roy melts the Yeti. Ice Table comes out next, and Roy just melts him too. His last Pokemon is Cryogonal, who manages to confuse me and lives a single flamethrower in the red, so I switch into Edward on the Hyper Potion, and next turn, a single Ironhead picks up the kill. If I had to summarize this gym in 2 words, it would be that Roy You know what? Actually, I can't say that. I've already used my one PG-13 F word, and this is what we in the industry call a callback choke. So to summarize differently, Roy obliterated this gym. We burned it to the ground. I almost feel bad. I don't, but I almost do. With the 8th badge out of the way, we've officially entered the end game. We make our way into Victory Road, and there is really only one obstacle left before I take on the Elite Four, and that's Serena. Her team has gotten progressively stronger these last few times, but I'm feeling confident. So, for one last time, we have to smash the girl next door. I lead off with Envy into her Meowstic because it always goes for a fake out, and I have the type advantage here. We trade Shadow Balls, only mine does infinitely more damage and gets a special defense drop. We run back the same turn, only this time the cat gets a critical hit, which leaves me at 7 HP, which is a very low number. Still, we survive, and I drop the Meowstic, and Serena sends out Jolteon in its place. I go out into Olivier, who has now learned Earthquake, which is insane. This goat learns Earthquake by level up. That's rad. I switch into a soft discharge and then take another before I Earthquake, and Jolteon just barely lives, which is incredibly unfortunate since I take one more discharge and end up getting paralyzed. Still, we pick up the KO and Delphox comes out next. I switch into Ling, who eats a flamethrower pretty well, and then on the next turn outspeeds and lands a waterfall for all but like one of the Fox's HP. I get the flinch though, and it's free to pick off with Aqua Jet the next turn. I'm 99% sure that is the easiest I have ever dealt with this thing. Good job, Ling. Serena sends out an Altaria that cannot really touch Armstrong, so we switch him in and just Power Gem until the Cloud Dragon bird dies. Absol is her last Pokemon, and it really likes to set up sword stances, so I switch into Edward for the Intimidate while Absol dances with blades. And on the next turn, we take some small chip damage and then make this Absol very past tense with a Play Rough. That's it. That was the last challenge before the Elite Four, so now it's time to prep. I decide on a final team of Ling, Edward, Bradley, Roy, Oliver, and Armstrong. Even though I love Envy and she has done a ton for me this run, I think that she offers me the least value in the Elite Four and champion battles. So we let her retire peacefully in the box. Speaking of the box, this is what I had access to at the end of the game. There are some rad Pokemon in here that I considered using, but ultimately I didn't feel like they offered me anything better than what I already had. Also, in case anyone is wondering, the Rotom could have only been Rotom Fan or Fridge forms. The rest of its forms, even its base form, are all too high tiered for this run. With the team locked down, I farm some EV reset bags, EV train my team, and then get them to the level cap of 65. I scour through TMs and relearn moves to come up with sets, shuffle around some items, and then we just entered the Elite Four. I decide to take on the Water Boy first since it looks like the absolute easiest fight I will have here. I lead Olivier, and I'm not gonna waste your time. Hornleech picks up 2 kills immediately, but then Gyarados comes out. It intimidates me, but I still feel like I will do good damage, so I go for a Hornleech as it sets up a Dragon Dance, which is bad, but the Hornleech doesn't really do much damage, which is terrible. Next turn, Gyarados sets up another dance, so I start trying to match with bulk ups. The Gyara sets up a third Dragon Dance on the next turn, and honestly, I'm worried my run is just over here. I go for a Horn Leech, which does a ton of damage, but leaves the Serpent in the red, meaning it's about to get fully healed. I Horn Leech again after the max potion, which drops it below half health, and on the next turn it goes for an Ice Fang, which would almost definitely decimate me, but it misses. It misses its 95% accurate move, and I just take it out. That is definitely fortunate for me. Seabold's remaining Starmie is not an issue, and I take it out in one hit. So that is 1 Elite Four member down and 3 to go, and I would rather be lucky than good. Next, I decide to take on Draznia. I bet you cannot guess what kind of trainer she is just based on her name. Go ahead, guess. Wrong. She's a not good trainer. She just happens to specialize in dragons. I lead off with Armstrong into her Dragalge, and a couple of Earth Powers just picks up the KO. She sends out her Dredagon, which I know will go for revenge, so I switch into Bradley and Encore into this move so it can only use a 4 times resisted attack, and I pick it off through a couple of Hyper Potions with Dazzling Gleam. Her Altaria is next, and I send in Ed, who can't really be hurt here. I go for Play Rough, but I miss. No big deal, I can just do it again. Oh, okay, so I missed twice. I'm still pretty healthy though, so I just swing another and okay. So I missed 3 times in a row. 95% accurate move, by the way. I guess this is karma. Finally, I land the next one and the Altaria just drops. Her ace is Noivern, and I switch into Ling on a Flamethrower, which does very little damage. Next turn, I go for an Ice Fang, thinking it 100% kills, but it does not. The Noivern responds with a Dragon Pulse that almost takes me out, so we're both left with just slivers of health. I run some numbers and then click Aqua Jet, since Ice Fang has 95% accuracy, which we've seen twice throughout this Elite Four is not a great number to rely on. The Aqua Jet picks up the KO and wins us our second Elite Four match. I decide to take on Malva next, so I lead with Ling into her fire types. A Waterfall on turn 1 just drops her Pyroar, so she sends out Talonflame next. I switch into Armstrong, taking a light hit, and on the next turn, Power Gem just decimates this bird. Next, she sends out her Torkoal, who has Earthquake, and since my Sturdy is already broken, I switch into Olivier. I think setting up a bulk up makes sense here, but the Torkoal starts cursing, and I know that this is not a great position for me to be in. I panic switch into Ling as the Tortoise curses again, and I click Waterfall and pray for a flinch, which I get, but it doesn't even do half. Most attacks this Torkoal can use are going to do a ton of damage to my team at this point, but if I lose Ling here, I should still be able to pivot strategies if I have to. So I YOLO click Waterfall again, and we get the classic low roll, high roll gambit to just take the Torkoal out, which just feels like peak content. Chandelure comes out next, so I pivot into Armstrong on a Confuse Ray, then Roy on a predicted Flamethrower, but instead the candle just confides in me. I then click Rock Tomb, lowering its speed, doing over half, but she confuses me once again, so I double one more time into Armstrong, then into Ray to absorb the Flamethrower with Flash Fire and finish it off with the final Rock Tomb. I probably could have just stayed in with Ling and clicked Waterfall, but this felt infinitely safer since the Chandelure could always one-shot Ling, and pivoting with Armstrong and Roy was always free. Now, we only have one final Elite Four member, and I saved the strongest for last. At least, I think that theoretically this one will be the hardest. So I head into the final room and just challenge the Armor Suit Man. I lead off with Roy as he leads a set of keys. Legitimately just a set of keys. I expect him to set up spikes on turn 1, but he does not, and Roy just melts his keys in one hit. Not a great start for you, bud. He sends out Probopass next, and I realize at this moment I did not heal Armstrong from the last battle. It's probably not that big of a deal, but definitely not great play on my part. I pivot into him anyway to soak up a Power Gem, and then I double into Olivier to eat an Earth Power. A Horn Leech breaks his Sturdy, and then an Earthquake finishes the imposter Probopass off. He sends out Scissor next, so I switch into Roy, who just consumes an X Scissor. I even think it actually tastes good to him. A Flamethrower on the next turn does what I'm sure is at least 350% minimum damage to Scissor, and it's all down to Wickstrom's Aegislash now. I burn it with a Will-O-Wisp on its first turn out while it switches into Blade form, and then a Flamethrower finishes the job on the following turn. This singular battle is why I felt I needed a fire type so desperately, but you saw just how easy this fight was with even a super mid fire type. It's a slaughter. Sorry about all your melted metal, bro. I have a champion to face though, so I'll be leaving. We make our way to the champion's chamber, and this is it. It's do or die, fight or flight, winning the Nuzlocke or losing the Nuzlocke. I arrange my team, make sure my health and PP are topped off, and then we challenge Diantha. She leads off with a Hawlucha, and I send out Bradley. On turn 1, I click Psychic, and I outspeed what must be a very poorly trained Hawlucha for the one-hit KO. Seriously, why is my Mr. Mime faster than this thing. That makes no sense. She then sends out her Gorgai, so I switch into Roy. Instead of going for an attack, she uses Trick or Treat to give me the Ghost type, but I really don't care about this. This was just a free switch for me. Next turn, I Flamethrower for the entire HP bar and prompt Diantha to send out her Sharptooth. This Pokemon is big scary, and it is the single reason I have Edward on my team for this fight. I switch into Ed for the Intimidate drop and to eat up a Head Smash, which would probably kill the entire rest of my team aside from Armstrong. The Sharptooth takes recoil and Rocky Helmet damage, which is basically my strategy here. I double into Olivier to eat up an Earthquake, and then I go right back out into Ed for the Head Smash and get off an Intimidate again. At this point, I look at a calc and I see that I can comfortably live an Earthquake, so I stay in an Iron Head for the KO. Gudra comes out next, so I switch into Roy to absorb the Fire Blast, and then double into Ling to resist a Muddy Water, but instead I just dodge it. An Ice Fang on the next turn does over half and manages to get a flinch. That is a lot of flinches in this Elite Four. Another Ice Fang sends the Snot Dragon right back to its ball. A Long Neck is the penultimate Pokemon I have to beat in this run, and thankfully I've taught Ling Brick Break. So we hit it with the force of an Extinction Event Meteor, and it does in fact go extinct. Gardevoir is the last Pokemon we have to beat in this challenge, so knowing it has Thunderbolt, I switch into Olivier as it Mega Evolves and I eat a soft hit. On the next turn, I know Ollie can live any one hit, so I click Hornleech. I take a big hit from Moonblast, but Hornleech chunks for over half of the fairy's health and brings me back up over half. Another Hornleech on the following turn knocks the Gardevoir out and wins me the run. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, the Elite Four and Champion battles felt very comfortable. I had some really fortunate luck in a few of the games that definitely pushed things in my favor, but having actual type diversity in these runs lets you make so many switch plays that you would otherwise not be able to do. I love it, but I think next time I visit Kalos, I'm going to really try and make the games hard. So suggest rules that you think would up the ante a little. That being said, I had a ton of fun in this run, and I found out that I kind of love Go-Goat, and I like Probopass way more than I anticipated. That's part of what makes these runs so special, getting to use Pokemon you would never use and falling in love with them. No other way to play these games forces you to do that, and I love it. Thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you once again to Manscaped for sponsoring. Remember, if you want to pick up some incredibly high quality personal hygiene products, you can get 20% off and free shipping with promo code VIVID at manscaped.com. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to leave a like, and if you're new here, I hope you would consider subscribing. I'm currently in the middle of moving back to my home state, so my next video might be a little bit, but I'll be back as soon as possible. I've got big plans for 2022, and we are going to bang some Legends content when it comes out. With all that being said, my name is Vivid, and I'm kind of done here, so I have to leave. Bye.